Welcome to Digital Marketing ROI, the podcast that connects marketing to your business's revenue and covers everything you need to know to stay up to date in this crazy digital marketing world.
Welcome to Digital Marketing ROI. I'm your host, Shannon Allen, and I'm joined by my favorite co-host, Krystal Vivian. Happy Thursday, Krystal. How are you?
I am doing well, Shannon. How are you?
I'm good. By the time this podcast is out, I'll be back from Cancun, but we're recording ahead of time and I leave Tuesday. I can't wait. I'm excited. My daughter and I are taking our first big, just mom and daughter, big vacation. We've done Florida together, but we met people there. I've gone places with my mom, which was always so fun, like Disney and stuff. But this is just mom and daughter time to just soak up the sun, lay by the pool, eat some nachos, guacamole.
That sounds heavenly. I am going to be living vicariously through you because I'm sure it'll snow while you're gone, which is wonderful.
I hope so. That's because awesome. I appreciate, there's nothing worse than when you go away on vacation and it's just as warm here as it is there, which that will not happen. It's not going to be 85 here, but.
No, definitely not. If it is, we're all going to be very scared. 85 in February would be wild. But no, that's awesome. I'm super excited for you. That's going to be great. And, it's really cool that you and Ava get to spend that time together and have that like mom and daughter time. It's important.
Yes. Well, someday you and Maya will be doing it and you'll tell your hubby you're staying home.
Yes. Yep. 100%.
Well, you want to jump right in?
Yeah, I think so. I'm very excited by today's topic.
Yes, I did a training session on this with my team. I really have been talking to a lot of our clients about this. We're going to talk about tipping point today of OTT.
Yes. And I think that is really big. And I love this because I just recently read at the end of last year, my team and I, we do book club throughout the year. And we read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, right. Which I love that.
He's the one who kind of coined the phrase. And it was a fascinating book. I was surprised. It was like 25 years old. And now I'm currently reading Revenge of the Tipping Point, his update to The Tipping Point, which is also really fascinating. But it's all about how these movements or trends build slowly, and then all of a sudden they hit a tipping point, and then it's a significant shift. And you go from being a unknown author to a bestseller, right? For us, for digital marketing, we're really seeing that tipping point when it comes to OTT. And so my first question for you today, Shannon, is what significant shift are we seeing in TV viewing habits as, now we're a little over a month into 2025, and what does this truly represent as a tipping point for advertisers?
Well, it's funny. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. And the first time I heard about tipping point was when I first watched the Why video, right? When he talks about early adapters, that type of thing. And when the people that they won't go out and buy that new iPhone until the tipping point happens, right? So that was my first introduction into that conversation. And I had a car dealer a couple of years ago that is usually way ahead of everybody else. He's very understanding of his own industry. And he said, I'm not going to put all my dollars into OTT until the tipping point happens. And really, when I think about tipping point, I break it down two ways. And I think we're going to talk about both today. Let's first talk about the tipping point that I think is what he was referencing, which is when are we going to get to that point where there are more people streaming video for their TV versus linear broadcast, right? And we're there. Right. There was a record 41.6% of overall viewing time on streaming compared to broadcast, which was 23.7%, and cable at 25%. So you think about that's old ways to do it. Those amount of people are still looking at it with the box on their TV. Some of them might have those rabbit ears, or they're watching through Dish or Direct. But the tipping point happened where there's more people streaming than there are watching it through linear TV anymore. Right. Really high. And part of this is really the dramatic rise of what's called FAST, which is free ad-supported television platforms. So that's like the Pluto TV of the world, right? If I asked my sellers 3 years ago, when we were first talking about Pluto TV, they're like, Pluto TV yet. Nobody knows what that is. Well, guess what? Pluto TV has grown to over 80 million monthly active users. And for those listening that don't really know what that is, you can sign up for Pluto TV and get all your local channels that you want. You just have to watch commercials.
Yep.
Right.
And they also have on-demand content. They have channels where it's like, if you love stand-up comedy, you can watch 24/7 stand-up comedy. With my daughter, there's a bunch of cartoons and stuff on there. Pluto TV is awesome.
It is. And that's just one platform, by the way.
Yes, that's just
There's
one.
multiple ways with CTV to get the FAST, the free ad supported. And well, SVOD. So SVOD stands for subscription video on demand. So that's what people think of truly with like a Netflix. But even Netflix is moving more away from that model and offering it because people want choices anymore. And if you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would pay to not get commercials. Well, recently they just start to add up, right? So we know it's adding up faster than ever before. And like I signed up for the package with Max and Disney Plus and Hulu Live, so I can have all of that for $7 a month. And so over Christmas, I was binge watching things on the old HBO, what we call Max now. And I didn't mind watching the commercials. There wasn't that many. And guess what? It saved me so much money. And everything started to be targeted to me for the first time in a really long time.
I was going to say, and you're finally getting targeted ads.
Yes.
I remember watching when we first signed up for Hulu. So we rotate through different subscription services on a monthly to quarterly basis, depending on what show we're watching. But Hulu and Disney Plus, we've had that forever. I remember when Hulu first launched, you could only get it paid with ads. And the ads were boring, broad, general. This is like 2013. And they eventually made it so that you could pay to not have ads. And then we did that. But now it's nice that the ads are actually relevant. It feels like I don't mind watching something that
consumers are embracing
something that I'm going to need to buy or am actively shopping for.
Exactly. Well, ultimately, the rise of FAST platforms is really showing that viewers are willing to watch these ads, right? Just like you're talking about, in exchange for free content via something like Pluto TV, right? So Pluto TV alone is averaging 4 to 5 hours per session because that's their go-to at night anymore. They're not always flipping back to Netflix. They might, but during the week and catching their news, they're watching it the way that we grew up watching linear TV. When I say we, I kind of mean me, but you too.
Me too. I grew up, and it's convenient, right? It's nice to have just something and not have to think about or scroll through 10 different apps and all these different menus and just turn on a reliable channel and you're going to see ads and you're going to see a great show and that's great.
Well, think about this. The tipping point happened. It actually happened. It's not like 2025. It happened late 2023 and it just continues to grow. But back in 2018, TV held a 2-to-1 advantage over streaming. And that's understandable because we weren't there yet.
Right.
But we know that 2025 is going to be this pivotal year for this tipping point. It's only going to grow and it's going to become the dominant force in video consumption. And this is why if that's where the consumers are, we have to follow up, right?
Absolutely. Well, so let's talk about kind of like this old broadcast TV stronghold that everyone has always thought, well, we have to have broadcast TV because of sports.
Yep.
Because if we want to watch football, if we want to watch hockey or baseball or whatever it is, we have to have a broadcast TV subscription. How is sports content adapting to the streaming revolution and contributing to the tipping point?
It's a great question. And it's something we talk about a lot with our clients. I'm meeting with one of our largest clients tomorrow to do video strategy for 2025. And I went and looked at their schedule because I still believe in cross-channel marketing, right? I don't tell anybody, don't do TV, but figure out where you need to be. And so as we looked at her schedule, I love that they're on for the news, but they were buying these big TV sports buys, right? I said, we really got to watch that for 2025 because you're going to continue to see what happened. Last year, 96 of the top 100 most watched TV broadcasts were sporting events. Okay. That is big because that's what they have anymore. But that number is going to continue to go down. I think the biggest example was the NFL wildcard game that you had to subscribe to Peacock. Like that is the most brilliant form of forcing that because they could sign up and stop. But once they were on there, they were like, I might as well keep that on. 2.8 million new subscribers just for that event. 2.8 million, right? You can't beat that. There was a survey completed through Statista that I had looked up showing high willingness among sports fans to follow their favorite sports to streaming platforms with 80 to 82% of Premier League, NBA, and NFL fans saying they would likely subscribe. That's a big number.
That's a huge number, but it also makes sense if you think about the very loyal sports fan. And
yes,
especially sports seasons are limited. We're a big football family. We will watch every football game and we will watch it wherever it is because that's our entertainment in the fall and winter. And everybody has their own favorite. Sports fans are very, very loyal. That was brilliant on Peacock's part.
Oh, it was. And sports is going to continue to evolve. By 2026, and that's why I'm trying to kind of guide some of our listeners and our clients to this level, which is you're not going to have the sports channels. And by the way, why are we dictating that that's where that we want to be? That one channel might really be the masses, but you have no idea who's watching that game because you can't just assume it's men anymore. There's a lot of women watching football. You don't know what their likes are. You don't know what they're searching for. That's a great example, but I still want to be able to target wherever the consumer is and target what they're shopping for, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, I think what it's really powerful about the sports is it's bringing new people to platforms that may not otherwise be using it. And look at, I mean, that Peacock example, how many of those 2.8 million new subscribers looked at that and said, oh, wow, I didn't realize Peacock had all of these different shows and had all of these different things.
Yes.
Well, I'll keep my subscription and keep watching. And then they're able to be targeted now, no matter what they're watching.
Right. And 90% of them probably forgot they subscribed, and it might go for 6 months before they're like, crap.
Yeah, 100%.
With our theme of tipping point here, first the cord cutters and the viewership has changed. Part 2 of this tipping point is going to be some of this last holdout for broadcast and linear, which is the sporting. A lot of clients that I deal with are like, well, we're there for our sporting event, right? The big school in South Bend, which I won't name because we're not allowed to say it probably, but those events are going to continue to become less valuable on the local, unfortunately, and they're going to watch it through Peacock. They're going to watch it through Hulu. They're going to watch it through Netflix. It's going to be there. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's part 2 of the tipping point conversation will be sports. And I think next year you and I will be doing a podcast just about that.
Yeah, 100%. I think so too. With this tipping point, we're seeing more and more people are following their favorite sports to streaming. That's the consumer side. Those consumers are who our advertisers want to talk to. And I know we've talked about this in previous episodes, but I think it's a really important point to reiterate here. And also because it evolves quickly. What are the unique advantages for an advertiser for OTT CTV advertising compared to traditional broadcast, especially when it comes to audience targeting?
So I usually start with the biggest point that I always try to drive home. Why are we choosing to be on the local CBS or NBC only and guessing and hoping that that audience is ready to buy a car or they're ready to buy new furniture or they need to get a new HVAC system, right? Why are we deciding that that's where our audience is going to be when we can create a programmatic buy, right? And let me explain what that is to our listeners. So think of it this way. Programmatic is an auction going on at any time that I first create. I find out what my strategy is with this video commercial. Then I decide who's the audience I want to target. I've created my message that I want to target that audience. And then instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to buy up the local NBC or the local CBS, I'm going to buy it up as an auction and follow the consumers on their journey wherever they're consuming OTT. And by the way, OTT, which stands for over the top, can be both large screen and small screen. And so wherever they're consuming it and however they're consuming it. So first and foremost, you're not consuming your linear TV on your mobile phone. I mean, you're not. But I am sitting outside my daughter's practice while I wait for her, and I'm watching Love is Blind on Netflix. And by the way, I don't have the really expensive version, so I get ads served to me. Or I am on Pluto and I am watching an old show of, Dog the Bounty Hunter or The Amazing Race while I sit there and wait. And I'm doing it off my phone. Or if you're like my daughter, you're on your laptop. Or sometimes I'm traveling and I'm watching it on my laptop. So that first and foremost, not only do you have more platforms to reach people on, more devices to reach them on, you have the most important thing, which is really the targeting. But I always start there with our clients to let them know your biggest advantage is you don't have to decide if your audience is on that one station. You don't have to decide that anymore, right? I had a competing TV station tell our biggest client, the auto dealer, why would you buy programmatic? You're buying all programmatic. And I said, yes, you are. And you want to be.
Yes, 100%.
You want to be buying programmatic.
Programmatic, I think, has a bad reputation from how it was 15, 20 years ago. It's changed, and it's incredibly effective.
It's incredibly effective. And I can't do the targeting on linear TV that I have the capabilities of. Now, is OTT as targeted as what I'm capable of doing with display campaigns? No. They're different. They're different targeting capabilities. Cookies have been dead for a long time. That's not how we target on display anymore. OTT, we have the ability to do specific demographics, viewing habits, interests. We can do first party data. I mean, the kind of things where I can go to my local credit union and want to get their message across that they have a 0% loan out right now to their existing members. Well, we can download their members list. I can't know their name, but I can target their homes with the message that says, come in today and sign up for a 0% credit card, right? Like, how great is that? I can't do that with linear. And by the way, when you do things like that, it doesn't cost you a $5,000 for 50 spots. I can cut that in half to a targeted audience, so it's more quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And you know that it's going to the people who are within your target audience, who are most likely to go in and get that credit card or sign up for that offer.
Yes. And by the way, CBS in my market is channel 3, always was, and I still call it channel 3, right? It's not about that anymore. It's not about what channel you're on and what time slot I want. I'm going to reach you whenever you are searching, however you're searching, and whatever device you're searching on. That opens up a whole new element of really strategic marketing that linear TV has never been able to do.
Yeah. Well, we feel really confident about OTT and CTV advertising, but how are advertisers and business owners, how are they feeling? What do the advertising trends tell us about what business owners are thinking when it comes to OTT, CTV versus the traditional broadcast advertising?
So there's been what I would say a historic shift in advertising spend. So we're still not at that tipping point. Advertisers have not completely caught up to the viewership, right? It's coming. And I think this will be the year it tips. That's my prediction. We'll see. I want to first start with small businesses. For small business specifically, the industry forecasts predict that by 2025, 72% of small business owners plan to allocate more than half of their video advertising budgets to OTT. So they're taking that video budget that maybe they gave to broadcast in the past, and they're going to move it and they're going to test it out. 50%. That's a really big number. And the average small business is expected to increase their OTT spend that ran last year by at least 35%. Now, why would you increase your budget by 35% unless it's working for you?
Correct.
That's the biggest takeaway to me. We know the viewership are there. Advertisers are going to follow, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. The ones that are those early adapters, they jumped on this 2 years ago and dipped their toes into it. And all of a sudden there's going to come a point, and we have a few of these clients, they just stop doing TV altogether. And again, I always want to say, I believe in the mix. If you can afford to do the mix, put all those pieces of the puzzle together and reach them at all stages of the consumer journey. But if you have a limited budget, or you've never tried even TV commercials before, you've never done linear or broadcast, and you want to dip your toes into it, start with a strategy behind it and see how effective it is.
That's incredibly powerful. And
it is. Yeah.
So that just naturally brings it back to ROI, the topic that we have. If more advertisers are spending more money on OTT this year, they're switching that strategy. How does that translate to a better ROI for them?
So multiple ways. The number one to me, why choose one station when I can do it targeted among many platforms and reach wherever? That's the number one ROI to me right off the bat. Pricing, if you're doing it strongly, I read a lot of times, OTT is cheaper. I wouldn't say that. OTT can range anywhere from a $38 CPM to a $45 CPM, depending on your targeting capabilities and what you want to do. If you're buying it for less than that, you're probably not buying the programmatic OTT the way I am. You're probably buying Sinclair's own content platforms. So it's not as broad, right? But if you're in that range of a $38 to a $45 CPM cost per thousand, you can do less impressions. But if you really want to reach that broad audience and still have a little bit upper funnel, you're still going to be in about the same spend level. But now, instead of just throwing those commercials out and hope that they're watching the local news at the 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock hour, now I'm traveling and following them and knowing that they're in the market to buy a new car right now. So no matter what, that ROI is going to be higher, even if my spend is exactly the same. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then it goes into part two. That is, how do I know that it's working? Well, I can track. You're not tracking clicks on connected TVs, on our smart TVs. We're not clicking on them, but we know that we showed them that commercial and they came back to a website in 30 days, right? That's one way. If part of the inventory is going on a phone, they can click on that commercial and go right to your website. So we can track clicks that way, right? If it's done the right way. And last but not least, we can do some of that addressable geofencing, which I know that we can track that we delivered to somebody's home because we pulled a layer from that credit union example that I gave, where here's your audience that we're going to deliver these members your 0% rate. And then we can not only track if there's website visits from that, we can track physical visits. So then I can know they walked into that bank and they signed up for a 0% credit card, or they signed up for a mortgage, or they signed up for an auto loan, and I can track a physical visit as well. So multiple ways for me to track that I cannot do with linear, but true ROI is part of that.
Wow. I think that's really powerful, especially with the addressable geofencing, to be able to prove this person viewed this ad, went to your website, and then walked into your location. And if they're walking into your location, chances are they're going to be signing up for that offer.
Yes. We have a case study that I'm going to do a podcast on right before Christmas. One of our credit unions did a business lending commercial that they'd never done before. And we combined both video pre-roll and OTT for that commercial. And in a 30-day period, we tracked, there was almost 1,000 actions total between physical visits, clicks, because there was pre-roll in there, website view-throughs, which are those conversions back to the website. And the best part about that, we came back the month later and they had more loan applications than they've ever had. So the ROI was right there. And by the way, that campaign, it was a $3,500 a month campaign, but what it brought in and what they converted paid more than paid for it, quadrupled what they paid for that.
It's incredible to see that kind of return on investment so quickly.
Yes. What I encourage our listeners to do with any time we're talking about ROI is I can show you total actions. I can show you what you're spending, and from our campaigns, specifically with OTT, what results we're bringing. And we always remind them, I might not be able to show you a ton of results, because if your commercial is running on a large screen device or your smart TV, I don't know necessarily, because there's no clicks, but there is people coming to your website. But keep track of your point of sale. What's your unit sold? So you have to know your own numbers to see if you're seeing sales go up, if you're seeing website traffic go up, if you're seeing all these other elements. So it's a partnership with whatever agency or media company you're working with, is to establish that tracking method up front. And that's how ROI works in the first place, right?
Yeah. And then you both go to that meeting with your numbers and then compare and make sure that you're both on the same.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of our job. And by the way, if it's not working, it tells a story too. Look, not every marketing campaign out there is bringing in this overwhelming ROI. There's going to be hits and misses. But if I have to choose where I'm going to spend my own personal money, I know all day long it's going to be in streaming video versus linear TV because of the ROI compared to what it used to be. And I've been doing this a long time. So, because I'm old.
You're a fine wine, Shannon.
I am fine wine. Yes, I am.
Better with age and wisdom.
I am better with age. Thank you for that. Well, this has been fun. I'm looking forward to a lot of our podcasts this year. And there's going to be some really good content that you and I are excited to share with our listeners.
Very excited. Very excited. Yes. Thank you for this conversation. I feel like I learned a lot. And I think that this is setting us up and setting our listeners up for very good strategy talks for OTT TV this year.
Yep. Well, thank you to our listeners for tuning in today, and join us for our next episode of Digital Marketing ROI.
You've been listening to Digital Marketing ROI from Federated Digital Solutions. Do you have an idea for a future episode or a burning digital marketing question? Text ROI to 45364 to get a link where you can share your idea. Subscribe to get new episodes every other Thursday, plus Tip Tuesday insights every week.
Podcasts by Federated Media.